The rain began without warning, the kind that soaks the city in minutes and turns streetlights into trembling reflections on wet asphalt. I watched the drops race down the Uber's window, each one blurring the skyline and my thoughts alike. My suitcase rested beside me, heavy not just with clothes, but with the quiet pride of victory. I was coming home early. The contract, one that had drained me for months, was finally signed. 10 years of relentless work had taught me one thing: success never arrives gently. It demands sleepless nights, missed birthdays, and a heart hardened against exhaustion. I had paid that price willingly, believing every sacrifice was an investment in my family, in my husband, in our future. Tonight, I planned to surprise him. A real dinner, no takeout, no cold leftovers, just warmth and effort, something I hoped he still noticed. The Uber stopped in front of our building. I paid, stepped out, and pulled my suitcase across the polished concrete of the underground garage. My heels echoed in the emptiness, sharp and lonely. When I reached parking spot B15, my steps slowed. Something was wrong. The space I had purchased for an obscene amount of money, our private, protected spot, was occupied by a red sports car. Flashy, careless, completely out of place. I stared at the license plate. My stomach tightened. It belonged to Anya, my sister-in-law. Confusion rushed in first, then unease. It was a weekday. Her husband, my younger brother, was working on a construction project miles outside the city. She should have been at her office or with her parents. Not here, not in my space. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she needed help. Maybe she dropped something off. Families visit each other. That's normal. I repeated that lie all the way to the elevator. Inside, the mirrored walls reflected a woman I barely recognized. 35, perfectly dressed, carefully composed, and tired in a way makeup couldn't hide. Dark circles framed eyes that had spent too many nights chasing deadlines instead of rest. I wondered briefly if my husband saw me the way I once was, or only as a source of comfort and money. The elevator opened on the 18th floor. The hallway was silent, too silent. I moved quietly, driven by the childish thrill of surprise. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't knock. I pressed my thumb against the biometric lock. A soft click. The door opened. Lavender filled the air, my scent, familiar, comforting, but beneath it was something else, something sweeter, foreign, a fragrance that didn't belong to me. I slipped off my heels. Then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in a peaceful home. A woman's breathless moan. My body froze. Time collapsed into a single, horrifying second as the noise continued. Ragged breathing, whispered words, the unmistakable rhythm of intimacy. My chest tightened so violently I thought I might faint. I moved toward the bedroom without thinking, every step heavy, unreal. The door was slightly open. Light spilled through the gap. What I saw shattered me. 2 bodies tangled together on my bed. My bed. On sheets I had changed with my own hands before leaving. The woman's face turned toward the door, and my world cracked. Anya. My sister-in-law. The girl I had defended, supported, treated like blood. And the man beneath her. My husband. His voice followed, hoarse with desire, careless with cruelty. "She's nothing like you," he murmured. "Cold, dry, all she knows how to do is make money." Anya laughed softly. A sound I would never forget. "What if she comes back early?" she whispered. He scoffed. "She believes everything I say." That was when something inside me died. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took out my phone. With hands that barely felt connected to my body, I recorded everything. The sounds, the words, the truth. 2 minutes long enough to destroy a marriage, but not long enough to numb the pain. When I was done, I closed the door silently, picked up my suitcase, and walked out like a ghost, leaving her own life behind. I don't remember how I got back into the Uber. I only remember shaking. And knowing, deep in my bones, that this was only the beginning. I thought betrayal was the worst pain imaginable. I was wrong. Because that night, I didn't confront him. I didn't leave. Instead, I made a decision that would slowly destroy everything he thought he controlled. I don't remember telling the driver where to go. I only remember the city sliding past the window in blurred streaks of light while my body shook uncontrollably, as if I'd been dropped into ice water. My teeth chattered. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold together what had just shattered. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go back home. I went to the only place where I wouldn't collapse completely. Mika's house. She opened the door in pajamas, her hair messy, confusion turning into alarm the moment she saw me standing there with a suitcase and a face drained of color. "Zara," she whispered, "what happened?" I didn't answer. I walked past her, set my suitcase down, and sank onto the couch like my bones had dissolved. When I finally handed her my phone and pressed play, the room filled with the sounds of betrayal. Mika watched in silence. When the video ended, she didn't comfort me. She didn't curse loudly. She simply exhaled slowly, the way a lawyer does when she already knows how ugly things are about to get. "Listen to me carefully," she said, gripping my hand. "Do nothing. No scenes, no accusations, no tears in front of him. If you explode now, you lose." Her words felt cruel, unfair. "But," my voice broke. "If you confront him," she interrupted calmly, "he'll cry, lie, beg. He'll move money, erase evidence, prepare defenses. You won't just lose a husband, you'll lose what's yours." She leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "You stay calm, you pretend, and you collect everything." That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every memory of the last 10 years, every late night, every sacrifice, every time I chose responsibility over myself. By morning, the pain had hardened into something colder. Resolve. I returned home after sunset. Before opening the door, I took a deep breath and put my mask back on. The door opened loudly this time. "Honey, I'm home." Silence. Then hurried footsteps. My husband appeared, already dressed for bed, smiling too quickly, eyes scanning my face like a guilty child searching for danger. "You're back already," he said, forcing enthusiasm. "You didn't say anything." I smiled sweetly. "I wanted to surprise you." He hugged me tightly, too tightly. I stood stiff in his arms, fighting the urge to recoil. Even after he opened all the windows, the air was wrong. That smell again. Sweet, familiar. Not mine. I walked into the bedroom and stopped. The sheets were different. The expensive charcoal gray set I loved, the one I had changed before leaving, was gone. In its place was an old pastel pink set I hadn't used in years. I turned slowly. "Why did you change the sheets?" He froze for half a second, then laughed nervously. "Oh, I spilled coffee, made a mess." A lie so bad it almost offended me. But I nodded. "You're clumsy." That night, I lay beside him without touching him. His breathing grew steady. Mine never did. At exactly 2 in the morning, I moved. Slowly, carefully. I took his hand and pressed his thumb against his phone. The screen lit up, cold and blue. Messages were spotless, too spotless. I went deeper. Hidden apps, locked folders. The password. Not his birthday. Not our anniversary. Her birthday. The screen unlocked instantly. Messages flooded my eyes, explicit, intimate, filthy. Photos I wished I could erase from my memory. Transfers of money, gifts, jewelry. I screenshotted everything. Every word, every dollar. By the time I placed his phone back, my hands were shaking, but my mind was terrifyingly clear. In the morning, I made breakfast. Grits, coffee, toast. He smiled at me like nothing had happened. As he ate, I spoke casually. "By the way, I saw Annia's car in our parking spot yesterday." The spoon fell from his hand. "Oh, she probably stopped by for something," he said too quickly. I smiled. Strange, the doorman said she was there all afternoon. He didn't look at me again. That evening, I came home late on purpose. Dinner was cold. He hovered, anxious, overly kind. During the meal, I leaned closer. "You haven't been sleeping well," I said softly. "The doorman mentioned you've been leaving at night when I travel, driving toward the outskirts." His face went pale. "I'm worried," I continued gently. "What if you're sleepwalking?" Fear flashed across his eyes. Perfect. That night, he barely slept. Neither did I. But the difference was this. He was afraid of being caught. I was planning his downfall. I had proof. I had patience. But what I discovered next would turn betrayal into something far worse. Once fear takes root in a guilty mind, it spreads fast. After my casual remarks about the doorman and his late-night drives, my husband changed. His laughter became forced, his movements cautious. Every time I picked up my phone, his eyes followed it like a predator watching a trap. That's when I knew I had him. But fear alone wasn't enough. I needed to understand the full scope of what he had taken from me, not just emotionally, but materially. Money had always been his weakness. I paid attention to everything. How often he checked his phone, the way his hands shook when bills arrived, how quickly he minimized screens whenever I walked into a room. One night, when he was slightly drunk and relaxed, I decided to test him. I prepared a careful dinner, candles, wine, soft music, not romance, strategy. Midway through the meal, I sighed as if thinking out loud. "I went to see a piece of land today," I said lightly. "Beautiful location. The owner's desperate. It's a steal." His fork paused midair. "I was thinking of using our joint savings as a down payment," I continued. "Money shouldn't just sit in the bank, right?" The color drained from his face. "Our savings," he repeated too quickly. "Now isn't a good time. The market's unstable." I smiled calmly. "That's why we should move fast, about 100,000 to start." His glass trembled. After a moment of silence, he exhaled sharply. "I invested it." "In what?" I asked. "The stock market. It crashed. We'd lose too much if we pulled out now." There it was. The classic lie. I nodded slowly, pretending disappointment. "You should have told me." Relief flickered across his face. He reached for my hand. "I did it for our future." I pulled away. That night, I met Mika again. She reviewed the screenshots and banking records with a professional calm that frightened me. "He's been siphoning money for years," she said, "and not just to his lover." She slid another file toward me. Shell accounts, inflated invoices, kickbacks from suppliers, money routed through his mother's account. Nearly $1 million. I felt sick. He wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a criminal. And I was done protecting him. The next step came naturally. I needed witnesses. Whispers. Reputation damage. At his company's annual gala, I played the role of the perfect wife, elegant dress, warm smile, arm linked with his. I sought out the one woman everyone listened to. Mrs. Caldwell. "I shouldn't say this," I whispered, eyes glossy with concern, "but people are talking. The doorman saw him with another woman. They say she looks like my sister-in-law." Shock spread faster than wine. By the next week, the office atmosphere turned icy. My husband came home drunk one night, furious. "They're saying I'm having an affair," he snapped. "Jealous losers." I touched his arm gently. "Ignore them. Innocent people don't need to defend themselves." His hand shook. Later that night, his phone lit up. A message from Anya. "I'm scared. People are starring. What if we stop?" Their alliance was cracking. And then came the photo. Mika sent it without commentary. Anya entering a private clinic. A gynecologist's office. My breath caught. Fear, shopping sprees, panic calls. It all pointed to one thing. A child. I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, understanding that this betrayal wasn't finished unraveling. It was about to explode. I thought exposing the affair would end it. I was wrong. Winter arrived quietly, slipping into the city through cold winds and gray skies. My parents called that week, saying it had been too long since the family gathered together. They wanted a warm lunch, something simple, something peaceful. I agreed immediately. I already knew peace wouldn't last. When we arrived, Tavan and Anya were already there. My brother looked the same as always, rough hands, honest smile, eyes full of plans for the future. Anya, on the other hand, looked different. Too polished. Her dress hugged her figure perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. But what caught my attention wasn't her appearance, it was what hung around her neck. A white gold necklace. Small, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light with every movement. I recognized it instantly. The $10,000 charge I'd seen on my husband's bank statement flashed in my mind like a warning siren. So that's where the money went. Lunch passed in laughter. My parents beamed. Tavan fed Anya pieces of food like she was something fragile and precious. Watching him broke something in me. He loved her with a purity she didn't deserve. When plates were mostly empty and everyone relaxed, I smiled and spoke casually. That necklace is beautiful, Anya. It looks expensive. Did you just buy it? The table went silent. Anya's hand flew to her throat. My husband choked on his drink. Tavan looked up, curious. Oh no, she stammered. It's just costume jewelry, cheap. I bought it online. I tilted my head. Really? It sparkles like a real diamond. Tavan laughed. She loves fake jewelry. I tell her to stop wasting money on it. My husband didn't laugh. I turned to him with a soft smile. I love that style. Maybe you'll buy me one someday. His jaw tightened. That night, he didn't sleep. Neither did she. The next days were filled with tension. Anya posted vague messages online, deleted within minutes. My husband whispered on phone calls late at night, packing the balcony like a trapped animal. Then the truth detonated. At another family lunch, Anya put her utensils down with shaking hands. I'm pregnant. Joy erupted. My parents cried. Tavan hugged her, laughing, already planning names. Only 3 people didn't smile. Anya looked terrified. My husband turned pale. And I watched everything with a calm that frightened even me. I raised my glass. Congratulations, I said gently. Make sure you get all the checkups. Knowing the exact weeks is very important. Her eyes flickered with panic. That night in the car, I spoke softly. Strange timing, isn't it? Tavan, been away so much, but miracles happen. My husband didn't answer. He just drove faster. That baby wasn't a blessing. It was a ticking clock. Fear has a sound. It's not screaming or crying. It's the quiet desperation in whispered phone calls, the way footsteps pace the floor at night, the frantic deleting of messages that were never meant to exist. After Anya's announcement, fear settled into our lives like a permanent guest. My husband stopped pretending. He barely ate, barely slept. Every vibration of his phone made him flinch. At night, he stood on the balcony smoking, staring into the dark as if answers might rise from it. Anya called him constantly. Not secretly anymore. I heard her voice through the phone, sharp, trembling, urgent. You said this wouldn't happen. You promised you, handle it. What am I supposed to tell Tavan? He lied to her, the same way he had lied to me. I'll fix it, he whispered. Just give me time. Time was the one thing they didn't have. I let the pressure build. One evening, I casually mentioned a business trip. I'll be gone for 2 days, I said, stirring soup. Board meetings, exhausting. His eyes lit up with a hope he couldn't hide. I didn't leave the city. I checked into a hotel 5 blocks away and waited. On the second night, Mika called me. They moved, she said. My heart pounded as I followed her instructions. A quiet clinic on the outskirts, no signboard, cash payments only. I sat in my car across the street, watching Anya step inside with her head lowered, my husband close behind. So that was the plan. Erase the evidence. I recorded everything from a distance, from the shadows, the way he held the door for her, the way he touched her arm protectively. They stayed inside for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I waited. Days later, Anya returned home pale and hollow-eyed. Tavan hovered over her, confused, worried. She told him she'd lost the baby. The house filled with grief. Tavan mourned a child that had never been his. And my husband. He slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. That was when I knew. Mercy wasn't in my nature anymore. They thought the secret was buried. They were wrong. Grief has a way of softening people. After Anya's loss, the family wrapped her in sympathy. My mother cooked for her. My father called daily. Tavan barely left her side, carrying her pain as if it were his responsibility to bear. Watching him broke something in me. He blamed himself, his long work hours, his absence, his belief that love alone could protect a marriage. He didn't know that betrayal had been living under his roof long before grief arrived. My husband, however, grew comfortable. Too comfortable. He believed the danger had passed. The baby was gone. The affair was hidden again. Money was still missing, but I hadn't asked questions. Silence to him meant safety. That was my greatest weapon. I started small. One evening, while we were having dinner with my parents, I mentioned casually, "A colleague of mine is being audited. It's terrifying. Bank records, clinic receipts, even deleted transactions can be traced." My husband's fork slipped. My mother frowned. "For medical records, too." I nodded. "Especially medical records. Clinics keep everything, years of backups." My husband excused himself to the bathroom and didn't come back for 10 minutes. That night, his phone rang nonstop. Anya was unraveling. "She says someone from the clinic called," he whispered angrily on the balcony. "She thinks they're being investigated." "Relax," I said sweetly when he returned. "Why would anyone investigate you?" He stared at me, searching my face. He found nothing. A week later, Mika finalized everything. Financial trails, medical confirmation, video timestamps, call logs, GPS locations. Every piece lined up perfectly, forming a story no one could deny. "All you have to do," Mika said quietly, "is choose when." I chose Tavan's birthday. The family gathered again, trying to reclaim joy. Balloons, cake, forced smiles. Tavan looked older than his years, grief carving lines into his face. Midway through dinner, Anya excused herself suddenly, pale and shaking. My husband followed. I followed them both. They stood in the hallway, whispering urgently. "I can't do this," Anya sobbed. "They're asking questions." "They can't prove anything," my husband snapped. "You promised you, stay calm." That was when I stepped forward. "They can prove everything." They froze. I held up my phone, not threatening, not dramatic, just honest. "Medical records don't disappear," I continued softly. "Neither do financial crimes, and lies always rot from the inside." Anya collapsed against the wall. My husband's voice cracked. "What do you want?" I looked past him, straight into the living room, where my brother laughed weakly at a joke he didn't find funny. "I want the truth," I said, "and I want it told by you." They thought I would expose them immediately. I didn't. People imagine revenge as something loud. Screaming, accusations, public humiliation. But real revenge is quiet. It's patience. It's letting guilt rot people from the inside until they destroy themselves. After Tavon's birthday, I said nothing. No threats, no confrontations, no emotional scenes. I returned to my routines, work, gym, dinners with family, as if nothing had changed. That silence was unbearable for them. My husband watched me constantly, waiting for the explosion that never came. Anya avoided my eyes, her body shrinking every time I entered a room. Fear made them reckless. Anya started snapping at Tavon. Small things, dirty dishes, late nights, the wrong tone. Tavan, still grieving a child he thought he lost, tried harder. Flowers, apologies, weekend trips she refused. Guilt turned her cruel. One night, Tavan called me. "I don't understand her anymore," he said quietly. "She looks at me like I'm a stranger." I swallowed hard. "Grief changes people," I replied carefully. "Sometimes it reveals who they really are." The next step came from my husband. He begged. Not with words, but with behavior. Expensive gifts appeared on my desk. Weekend plans he'd never made before. Compliments that came too late and meant nothing. One evening, he finally broke. "I know you know," he whispered in the dark. I didn't respond. "I'll do anything," he said. "Please." Still, I said nothing. That silence haunted him. Days later, Ania cracked. At a family dinner, my mother mentioned how strong Tavan had been through everything. Ania laughed suddenly, sharp and bitter. "You don't know him at all," she snapped. "He's never here, never enough." The table went still. Tavan stared at her. What did I do? She stood up, shaking. "I was lonely. Is that so hard to understand?" My husband stood too fast. "Sit down." That was the wrong move. Ania turned on him. "Don't tell me what to do." Everyone watched in confusion as years of lies boiled over. Tavan's voice trembled. "Why are you talking to him like that?" Silence. Ania's eyes filled with tears. Then anger replaced them. "Because he understands me," she shouted. "Because he was there when you were." The room exploded. My mother gasped. My father stood. Tavan's face drained of all color. My husband froze. "No," Tavan whispered. "Say you don't mean that." Ania covered her mouth, realizing too late what she'd done. But it was already over. The truth was finally out, but not all of it. Silence followed Ania's confession. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses against your chest until breathing hurts. Tavan looked from her to my husband, his expression empty, as if his mind had shut down to protect him from the truth. My parents stood frozen, unable to process what they'd just heard. My husband was the first to speak. "She's confused," he said quickly. "Grief does that, she didn't mean." "Stop," I said calmly. Every head turned toward me. I stood, slowly, deliberately, and placed my phone on the table. My hands didn't shake. "Confusion sounds like forgetting where you put your keys," I continued. "Not sleeping with your brother's wife, not stealing money, not paying for secrets." My husband's face collapsed. Ania started crying, loudly, dramatically, but no one rushed to comfort her this time. Tavan's voice was barely a whisper. "Is it true?" I unlocked my phone. I showed them everything. The messages. The photos. The clinic receipts. The bank transfers. Each swipe felt like tearing open an old wound, but this time it didn't bleed. My mother covered her mouth. My father turned away. Tavan sank into a chair as if his legs had given out. My husband dropped to his knees. "I love you," he begged. "I made mistakes, but—" "You made choices," I corrected. "For years." Ania tried one last time. "I was lonely. You were always working." "So was I said softly. "And I didn't betray my family." Tavan stood. "I want you both out," he said, voice shaking but firm. "Now." They left in silence. The house felt different after, lighter, like it had finally exhaled. That night, I slept for the first time in months. I thought exposure would bring peace. I was wrong. The aftermath wasn't loud. There were no dramatic confrontations, no screaming matches in public places, no apologies shouted across rooms. What followed was quieter and far more devastating. Silence. My husband moved into a rented apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place people choose when they don't expect visitors. He tried calling me the first night, then the next, then every night after that. I didn't answer. Ania disappeared completely. She deactivated her social accounts, stopped answering family calls, and avoided every place she might be recognized. Tavon filed for divorce within a week. No negotiations, no second chances. He told me later, his voice steady but empty, "I can survive heartbreak. I can't survive disrespect." I was proud of him. Legal consequences followed swiftly. Mika did what she did best. The financial investigation uncovered years of fraud, embezzlement masked as investments, money funneled through relatives, false invoices signed with careless arrogance. My husband lost his position quietly. No announcement, no farewell email. Just removal. Anya wasn't spared either. Her employer let her go within days after the scandal reached them. Reputations, once broken, don't mend easily. One evening, my husband showed up unannounced. He looked smaller, older, stripped of confidence. "I lost everything," he said, standing at the door. "No," I replied calmly. "You gave it away." He cried. "I didn't." Weeks passed, then months. I sold the apartment, started fresh. New place, new routines, new boundaries. I learned how silence could be healing instead of painful. One morning, Tavon joined me for coffee. "I blamed myself," he admitted, "for trusting her, for not seeing the signs." "You trusted because you were honest," I said. "That was never a flaw." He smiled faintly. As for me, I stopped defining myself by betrayal. I wasn't a victim. I was a woman who survived deception and chose clarity over comfort. I finally filed the papers. Divorce finalized, assets recovered, closure achieved. The past stayed where it belonged. Behind me. I once believed love meant endurance. Now I know it means truth. And if you're watching this story wondering what you'd do in my place, remember this. Silence can be strength. Truth can be power. And walking away can be the bravest choice of all.